I'm back. Disney World is the land where dreams become reality. So in 1976, when they opened up the River Country, dreams were gonna come true and things were gonna be insane. Well, bacteria-infested waters and outdated designs had it bulldozed real quick. Not so insane. This is insane. We're only here to show you the top 10 most insane water slides in the world, so welcome back to Top 5 Central. A Malaysian theme park is set to rock the world of water slides this August with the release of their brand new ride. It's such a big deal because, well, it's really big. The ride is going to be an insane 3,740 feet long. The current Guinness World Record is held by Action Park, and this new slide has its length beat by almost 2,000 feet. The ride was never intended to break any records when it was being designed. The CEO of Escape, which is the company who owns the park, said that he was baffled by the fact rides tend to be so short all the time, and instead he wanted to make rides that lasted a few minutes instead of being over straight away, which thank you Mr. CEO. With that in mind, it'll take you 4 minutes to slide from the top of the ride all the way down to the pool at the bottom. You'd expect such a long ride to involve a load of steps, or at the very least a long hill, but the park has that covered. The absolute worst part about water slides is the walking back part, but instead there's a cable car chairlift that takes you up to the top of the 70-meter tall slope that the ride rests on. When you get up there, you're treated to a 4-minute long ride back down, winding through the trees and scenery of the Malaysian forest. At 41 meters high, the Insano is one of the world's tallest water slides. Located in Brazil, this water slide was once the tallest in the world as registered by the Guinness Book of World Records in 2012. The plunge is so steep that some riders say it's more like flying than going down a ride, which makes sense considering it's over in 4 or 5 seconds due to the 65 miles per hour speed you could reach going down it. The ride was originally constructed in 1989 and has been attracting thrill seekers from across the world ever since. The ride is so extreme that there are strict safety instructions for when you take the plunge. You're only allowed to ride the slide on your back with your arms and legs crossed for maximum safety. Even with the safety-conscious instructions, the Insano slide still makes people lose their minds. People who work at the park have reported that tourists who ride the slide, usually from Europe, end up panicking and crying as they hurtle down the bottom of the slide. Benidorm is a popular tourist destination for vacationers from across the world, and this year its lineup of awesome water slides got even better. 200 meters in length, 12 stories high, and featuring a massive vortex tunnel, Cyclone is one of the biggest water slides on the planet. Unlike the slides we've talked about so far, Cyclone is a raft slide. Up to 4 people can be seated on each raft before hurtling down the ride at up to 37 miles per hour. The real standout feature of this ride is the vortex tunnel. I mean, the slide spits its passengers into what is basically a much larger piece of piping, which is said to almost feel like zero gravity for the people riding. You then re-enter one last tunnel before hitting the pool at the bottom of the slide. Named after one of the world's most famous mountains, Kilimanjaro is a water slide that was built in 2002 and is officially the tallest in the world. You would expect a ride named Kilimanjaro to be located somewhere in Africa, at least that's where the mountain can be found after all, but this ride is instead located in the Aguas Quentes Country Club in Brazil. The ride stands at just under 164 feet tall and propels its riders up to speeds of 57 miles per hour, which is especially impressive considering this ride is a body slide without the use of a raft. That doesn't sound like a lot, but man, that might hurt. Rumors say that 1 in every 20 riders change their minds when they get up to the peak of the Kilimanjaro water slide, which is not surprising considering just how tall it is. Not many water slides start you off on a conveyor belt, but the Wildebeest is a different kind of animal. It was designed and built in 2009 and can now be found at the Holiday World and Splash and Safari in Santa Claus, Indiana. And yes, I double-checked the name, it's literally called Santa Claus. It was named Wildebeest to fit in with the park's safari theme, and when it was open, it was the longest water coaster in the world, stretching out to 537 meters long. Unlike most of the rides on our list, the Wildebeest uses 4 passenger boats, making it almost more of a roller coaster than a water slide. Riders sit in the boat as if it was a toboggan, with individual seats separating each boat. After you get off the slow ascent of the conveyor belt, things pick up pace pretty quickly. You hurtle down pitch black tunnels, leap over jumps, and reach speeds of up to 24 miles an hour. Back in 2015, when Mountain Creek Water Park was still named Action Park, they were creating the biggest and best slip and slide the world has ever seen. The water slide was originally constructed in New Zealand, made from the same material as, I'm not joking, bounce houses, before being shipped over and rebuilt in the States. At the time of construction, this water slide was actually the longest in the world, which is pretty crazy when you consider it's just a big slip and slide. According to the promotional material, it'll take a rider somewhere between like 60 seconds and 90 seconds to make their way down the whole length of the slide, though that'll also depend on the rider themselves. From all the videos I've seen, it seems like you could get up to some pretty crazy speeds on the slide, so you'd have to be careful not to come off the relatively small side barriers, especially at this jump at the end. We're back at the Holiday World and Splash and Safari in Santa Claus, Indiana. Christmas came early and we're here to take a look at what some consider to be the successor to the Wildebeest we talked about earlier. This is the world's longest water coaster, the Mammoth. It opened in 2012 and stretches to 537 meters long. Unlike the Wildebeest, which uses 4-seater boats, the Mammoth ups the ante to round 6-passenger boats where all the riders sit facing each other. Much like the Wildebeest, you start off on a conveyor lift hill that takes you up to a tunnel. At the top of the lift, you drop down into the tunnel and go spinning down the slide on your raft. The ride features a steep 45-degree drop and multiple points where the raft rides up the wall of the tunnels as it takes corners. Another unique feature of this water coaster is its unique use of linear induction motors. These are used to push boats up hills through the use of an alternating magnetic field and a steel plate which is on the bottom of each boat, which basically pushes them up on the other side of the 45-degree incline. You really only see this type of stuff in a roller coaster, so it's pretty cool to see them in use at an actual water park. The Jumeirah Ski-Ra can be found at the Wild Wadi Water Park, and it stands in what may be the most terrifying way a water slide could ever begin. You start this ride standing in a pod with a trapdoor. An overhead voice will give you a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Then the floor drops, sending you hurtling down the ride's first tube. The slide is 120 meters long, and riders could reach up to 50 miles an hour while going down it. The slide looks way more like a free fall through the tube than an actual slide, but in just seconds it's over as the ride levels out and you end up in some deeper water which helps you slow down. What makes this ride so special though is definitely the way it starts. Not much could beat the anticipation of waiting for the floor to literally drop away beneath you, sending you plummeting down to nowhere. The King Cobra isn't around anymore, but when it was built in 2012, it was one of the coolest looking rides at Six Flags Hurricane Harbor. The ride is unique in the fact that it almost functions as like a race. 2 people ride it at once, one on each side. The 2 people speed down the slide at the same time, winding their way through the body of the snake until eventually they come out at its head. Here, you slide backwards and forwards along the Cobra's hood until coming to a stop. However, the ride was unfortunately closed in 2017. This was due to a lawsuit that had been opened a year earlier by a woman who had been injured while riding the King Cobra in 2015. Long story short, the woman exceeded the 200-pound weight limit for riders, causing her to move faster down the slide than normal. This meant that when she arrived at the end and slid up to the snake's mouth, she ended up slamming right into it instead of stopping short. This accident cost Six Flags $3 million in the negligence suit, which was more than enough for them to end up closing the ride. Instead of an awesome Cobra ride, we now have Calypso Springs, and let's face it, a pool in a dining area is nowhere near as cool as a giant snake water slide. The Aqualoop at Ixtapan Aquatic Park in Mexico, named the El Abismo, takes the concepts explored by the Jumeirah Ski-Ra and dials them up to 11. Just like in the previous ride, riders of El Abismo are bundled into a box to be dropped down into the rest of the ride by a trapdoor. That's when everything changes. Instead of just dropping through a tube at high speeds, the Aqualoop does exactly as the name would suggest. It sends you bolting through an actual inclined loop. After the countdown, the rider is dropped into a near vertical slide where they rapidly accelerate up to 37 miles per hour in just under 2 seconds. They then get forced into the incline loop, which has an angle of around 45 degrees. The slide is over in a short 7 seconds, but in that time you'll have traveled over 88 meters and done an insane loop. It's one of the coolest ideas for a water slide the world has ever seen. I mean, what can you really do after making a water slide with a loop? Make one with 2 loops? Wait, check out this video to see the most insane water parks of 2016. See how they stack up now.